on the left-hand side, write the word immigration. And right underneath it, write migration. And write the word immigration with an E. These are the three. Now, we're going to separate them because we're going to have three different definitions. These are three different, not ways to immigrate, but three different descriptions of immigration. Immigration with an I is moving from one country to another. The country part is the important part. You need to know that they're moving from one country to another. Because migration is moving from state to state within one country. So where immigration would be moving from, like you guys had the reading last week, Germany to Texas or Ireland to Texas. Migration is moving from Alabama to Texas, moving from Mississippi to California, moving from New York to Florida, moving from Texas to Oklahoma. That's migration, okay? Immigration with an E, okay? Immigration with an E is moving from one country to another with the intent to stay and establish your life. So if you immigrate with an I, people may be coming over here to get a better job for a certain period of time, or to try to help a family member, or something that's a short-term thing. Immigration with an E is a long-term thing. E, establish. Immigration, establish. Okay, does that make sense? Immigration with an E starts with an E, just like establish starts with an E. If you establish something, do you intend to stay there for quite a while? Yes. Okay. Write the question, why did people immigrate? And we're going to put with an I. So what was some of the reasons you guys read last week? What are some of the reasons that people immigrate? Why do people leave their country and come to Texas? For better land. What's that? What else? What's another reason? Okay. To make more money / better jobs. And when I say jobs, think in the 1800s, what kind of jobs were they looking for? Farmers, factories, those kinds of things. Why else would somebody immigrate?
Better economy.
That goes with the money. Better economy goes with the money. To escape war. Very good. Why else? Okay, we can put better life. Better life kind of goes with escaping war, better jobs, those kinds of things. Why else? Why else did you read, why did the Norwegians and the Swedes and the Swiss and the Irish and all those people, why did they leave? Say it again? Sicknesses, okay. To escape war, I'm going to put commas, sickness / disease. So maybe they wanted to get away from that was so rampant in their country. Okay. No support from the government. What else?
Taxes.
Okay, maybe to escape taxes. I'm going to also put up here where next to sickness and disease, famine. A lot of the countries that were left, the population exploded, meaning lots and lots and lots of people were being born and families were growing. And the home country couldn't support them anymore. So people were starving. Famine means people were starving. So that's another reason people came to Texas. Okay? So this is why did they come from another country? Okay? Why did people migrate? So why are they moving within the United States? Why are they going from one place to another? Well, let's create a T-chart. Let's write the Upper South and the Lower South.
How can a state or a country get in debt if they can make their money?
I'll answer that question later. Okay, so we have the Upper South and Lower South. Let's write the states that include the Upper South. The Upper South states are Kentucky,
Michigan.
Tennessee, Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. So why did the people in the Upper South leave these states? Because these are perfectly good states. These states are part of the United States. They're supported by the United States. But why did they want to get away?
I think because they held slaves or they didn't, I don't know.
Okay, let me explain it to you and then we'll write it down. These people in the Upper South wanted to get away because the people moving wanted to have their own farms, okay? In the Upper South, well, really in the South, you had a lot of slavery going on, and you had huge plantations. And a plantation is a place where you have lots of acres, hundreds of acres of land, and you have to farm that. So if you plant cotton, you're going to need slaves to help you farm 100 acres of land, okay? So these people moving and leaving from the Upper South, they wanted to have their own farms and their own plantations, but they couldn't afford slaves, and they didn't like the slavery system. But is it difficult to start a farm when you're trying to compete against something that's twice as big?
Yeah.
Let's think about it this way. Krispy Kreme, okay? Krispy Kreme is open on the corner. They're a pretty big donut shop, aren't they? Right? What if I wanted to start my own donut shop and I opened it right next door to Krispy Kreme? Would I be able to be successful?
Not unless you have
could.
better
I mean, if you have better donuts.
I could have better donuts,
But it's the name.
but
It's the name of going to Krispy Kreme. It's like buying like Under Armour clothes. It's not like the different quality. It's just the logo.
Oh, kind of like
There
fake
you go.
Oakleys and real Oakleys. The only difference is the sign.
Yes, very good. It's the name. People want to go to Krispy Kreme because it's Krispy Kreme, right? Whereas if they look at my shop and it's small and it looks kind of not nice on the outside because I don't have the money yet to be able to fix it up super nice, but I make the best blueberry donuts you can come across, okay? But people are going to look at my shop and look at Krispy Kreme and go, yeah, we're going to go to Krispy Kreme, okay? It's the name. Same thing with slavery. Can you own a small farm next to a gigantic plantation?
No.
If I'm a grocer, am I going to buy from a small farm or am I going to buy from somebody who I know well, who I know grows good crop?
Well, if you're smart, you would go to the Small one.
If I was smart, I would. But if I'm a grocer and I have to stake my name on this, am I going to take a risk?
No.
No. So I'm not going to buy from the small farmer. Because A, the small farmer can't produce enough for me. And B, I don't know if their produce is any good. So I'm going to stick with what I know and what can produce and what can show me the good stuff, okay? So that's what's going on in the Upper South. People are wanting to get away from slavery. They did not want slavery. They wanted to own their own farms, but could not compete against the plantations. The people from the Upper South, they weren't wealthy. They were not wealthy. So they couldn't own those big plantations. They couldn't have those big farms. They could only have these small farms that they built by themselves and they farmed by themselves. And so they really wanted to have a fresh start. And that's why the people from the Upper South came to Texas. So questions on the Upper South. Do we understand why they came? So looking at our list, why did they come? For a better land? Did they come for more money, better jobs, to escape war, sickness, disease, famine, a better life? Why did they come? More jobs? Better life? What about the land? Was the land in Texas cheaper?
Yes.
Texas land was
75 cents versus $1.25.
Yep, Texas land was half the price of American land. So why not move there? You have nothing to lose, okay? Let's look at the lower South, okay? The lower South included people from South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Okay, here's the difference between the upper and the lower South. The people coming from the lower South actually might have owned 1 or 2 slaves, okay? They were very wealthy, but a lot of things, back then your wealth was not how much money do you have in your bank account. Back then your money was tied up in your land. If you had hundreds of acres of land, you were wealthy. If you had 20 to 40 to 50 slaves, you were wealthy, okay? But is that a lot of money you can spend? No, you can't spend that money. But so your money's tied up in your land. So a lot of people who were in this area wanted to have that wealth, but they couldn't buy the land that was there. So they had 1 or 2 slaves, and their dream was to have those gigantic plantations with hundreds of acres of land and hundreds of slaves and make all that type of money that way. So the people from the lower South were coming to Texas to start plantations. That was their dream. Land was cheap, right? We just talked about that. Land was way cheaper. Could they buy lots of land and plant more? Yes, okay. And they already had a few slaves. So that way, the lower South is coming to start plantations, to have the big slavery plantations, versus the upper South that were coming just to have farms, just to have a life, okay?
wouldn't you have to be pretty wealthy, like money-wise, to be able to own a big plantation? Because you can't be poor, and so your money had to do something to help you.
A lot of the plantations were handed down through families.
Oh,
So if you were born into a plantation family, if you were a male, you took over the plantation once you became a certain age. And if you were a female, you had better find a husband who has money too, because then that's going to be part of the family too.
what about slaves? Like, how would you own more? How do you get more slaves?
By making more money.
I
But, and I'm not saying all of the money from plantations was tied up in land and slaves. The majority of it was. I mean, they had a little money on the side to buy goods and to pay, get more slaves and to do things like that. But if you looked at their bank account, because today, if we see somebody with $1 million bank account, what are they? They're filthy rich, right? But back then, you wouldn't have $1 million bank account, okay? Your money would be tied up in the land, and you might have $50,000 or $60,000 in the bank.
Is that a lot back then?
Back then, yes. I'm talking about, I'm kind of giving you numbers for today. Okay, so $50,000 or $60,000 in the bank today, you can live on it, right? But if you have $50,000 or $60,000 and you own all this land, that shows that you're wealthier back then. Yep. If you were a woman and you had a child and you were a slave, your child automatically became a slave, and the slave owner automatically owned that child.
So how do they take care of the babies?
Yeah, I was just about that.
They still took care of their babies. After a certain age, once the baby, and we're going to talk more about slavery this week, but we'll kind of talk about it right now. After a certain age, once the baby hit a certain age, then the baby had to start working. But until then, the baby just followed the mom around. Okay, we'll talk more about slavery later this week and how it kind of came to be and the history of it and the growth of it and kind of how that changed things. But let's go back to this. So the Lower South, they desired to have large plantations with lots of slaves. They came to Texas hoping to make enough money to do that. They settled along the Texas coast because the climate was better for cotton growing. What's the climate along the Texas coast? Raise your hand and tell me. What's the climate along the Texas coast? Humid? What else?
Like more moist.
Okay, it's moist, the humid.
kind of sometimes really hot, sometimes really cold, sometimes I don't know.
Does it ever get like freezing temperatures down there?
No.
No, so it's pretty mild climate. Yeah, it gets hot, but it's a pretty mild climate. Does it get a lot of rain?
Yes. No. Yes.
Along the coastline, it gets a lot of rain, okay? Cotton needed warmer air. It needed lots of moisture and lots of rain, okay?
Wouldn't that mess up the cotton if it's wet?
It's easier to pick.
It's not easier to pick. You're gonna
it's
see
solid.
you're gonna see how to pick cotton later this week. We're gonna talk about it.
We are
Okay?
like nowadays. Who picks the cotton?
A machine. A machine.
No one goes out there and picks it.
No, a machine picks the cotton now in 2013.
Who used to pick cotton?
Slaves. Okay, so let's look at a map of Texas. Let me pull up a map of Texas. Looking at this map, where do you think most people will settle? Okay, where do you think, like, the people from the upper south or lower south settled along here along the coastline. Where else do you think a lot of the people are going to settle? What areas are they going to kind of bunch around and settle around?
Rio Grande,
Maybe the Rio Grande right here?
and then
What else? Okay, why by Louisiana? What's over here that's good? Very good. There's water and rivers. Why would people not come settle over here?
and there's nothing.
There's no water here.
Rivers.
If we talk about why people came, even the immigrants from other countries, the upper south and the lower south, what was one common thread for why they all came to Texas? What was it? What did they want to do?
Grow a farm.
Have a farm. On some scale, whether it's a gigantic plantation or a little family farm. They wanted to have a farm. Can you have a farm in West Texas?
No.
There's nothing there. It's a lot of flat land. Think about your 4 regions. Where did I tell you was the best place to have farms?
Gulf Coast.
In the Gulf Coastal Plains, right here. Also in the North Central Plains. These 2 areas were the best places. What major geographic feature is here?
Rivers and lakes.
Rivers and lakes. Water. Okay? Anytime you have a settlement, wherever you are, if you're moving to Brazil, if you're moving to Africa, if you're moving wherever, okay, it doesn't matter the location. What matters is you will always see people who are settling first around water, whether it's along the Gulf Coast so that they can have transportation, or if it's in rivers so that they can have water for their farms, or they'll even use farms or rivers for transportation as well, okay? The Mississippi River is a prime example of that. Does the Mississippi River transport goods north and south? Yes. LaSalle discovered that, didn't he? When he came from Canada and he went down and ended up in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay? So, people always settle around the rivers first. Okay? So do we understand why people immigrated and migrated to Texas? Do we understand why people immigrated and migrated to Texas? For farms? For what?
Water.
Well, they had water, but they settled around water. For jobs,
Better land.
better land, cheaper land. Okay?